Damn, the signal is fucked, man. Yo, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah, sorry about that, man. Signal is shit.
yeah. Why is your signal shit?
I don't know, man. I know, but I just ironed it out, so I'm hoping it's gonna sustain this time around.
All right, let's go.
All right, so yeah, like basically I was saying, how we're all connected now, especially now with the artist. I feel I'm still a believer to whom much is given, much is expected. So by that, in this situation, would be the positions that artists are afforded. They have a voice that can hold it down a little more in boardrooms that the general civilians maybe not be made privy to, in terms of whether we want to bring in government in the conversation, which person I'm not a fan of, but they have a voice that can reach further than the general people can. And so my frame was kind of, are we collectively now as a people, artists included, using these platforms that we're given, these positions that we have, these opportunities that we're afforded, whether we're talking with working with corporate or working with government or whatever other privately owned enterprises, but are we using then our platforms and our positions to kind of help our people in the spirit of, we're in this thing together? Because at the end of the day, again, one affects the other. A broke population doesn't buy tickets to the shows, they don't stream the music, they can't afford to buy the albums. And so one way or another, we're linked in that way. So my mind frame was in that of, are we capitalizing off of our positions? Are we using this thing to kind of
My
push the
my question
community forward?
my question to you is you know, helping the community is broad, very, very broad. Um,
Absolutely.
People could be doing things in their individual capacities, but when you talk about a collective voice literally needs a mandate.
Yeah,
That's what makes
absolutely.
a voice powerful. What would you what would you what message do you think that should be out there? I mean, what message do you think the artists should be getting inside the boardrooms, the politicians, that speaks on behalf of the people? Um,
Yeah.
that like we that like that I feel that like when you're watching the news, you see it. What message do you think the artists should be putting out there, particularly for this COVID thing?
Forgot you. Well, again, I don't. First, I don't think that's like for one man. I think that's a people problem. But one of the things that we've seen, aside from the poverty and the failures for people to sustain themselves and having no jobs and their livelihoods being affected, we've seen, the rise in gender-based violence, against women and children, so on and so forth. I think that has been a consistent issue in recent months, maybe even years, but slightly escalated in this specific period. So I think, for me personally, that's one of the key issues, aside from it having been a present evil in our communities. But even within this pandemic, this is a thing. This is really happening more so than before. And I think that could be one of the things that we're looking at is, oh, this is a real problem in our communities. And it gets into a funky space because obviously, private spaces in people's houses, a lot of shit happens that the general public doesn't know. But I think it's given us sufficient evidence for us to know that this is a real problem, and one of the things that plagues our communities. So it's one of those things that I feel like enough attention and activity hasn't been done. Personally, I feel that way, and especially coming from our people. And by simply saying that, it's because I'm aware of the amount of reverence and respect and admiration that people have for their respective artists, whether be it actors, be it musicians, be it writers, be it dancers, and so on and so forth. We know the amount of faith and love that these people have and bestow on these artists. And so for me, it always creeps up to, are we doing enough to give back and protect these people and really help them in whatever respective issues that may be plaguing? But again, long story short, like again, gender-based violence, whether it's unemployment, whether it's opportunities for youth and entrepreneur, whatever it is, whatever issues are plaguing communities, I don't think it's a one man decides, okay, we're going to fix this. I think it's what do we have as a problem? What's the agenda of the general population? And then we kind of navigate from that as our North Star.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my perspective. That's why I wanted to have the conversation with you, because you might be standing from a different perspective. You might be seeing something maybe I'm not seeing or not considering, right? So I was like, okay, let's put this thing on the table, and I'd love to see if there's another lens to look at this thing, or more to it than is what's on the surface.
Well, when you think about gender-based violence, I think, regardless of COVID-19, um, as something that literally, like, I think everyone needs to be behind, right? When we look at this pocket of COVID-19, you could talk about gender-based violence. You could talk about unemployment, you know. You could talk about the reality of social distancing in dense areas, in areas where it's almost impossible to do that. You could talk about how some people, like the withdrawal symptoms that come with people not drinking alcohol, and how they could lead to some type of aggression. Um, you could talk about a bunch of issues that you could actually stand up for. But remember, these issues were not there before, like on day one of lockdown. They developed. We don't know what other issues are going to develop, you know. So it's very hard to try form a movement for something that I would say is fleeting. It's a difficult time, but it's moving. If we're going to talk about gender-based violence, you can't base your solution on COVID-19. If you talk about gender-based violence, you got to literally base it on the general behavior of gender-based violence. You got to go to the root of it, because
Sure.
a person who's going to be abusive because they're in the house, it doesn't mean that now that they're out the house, it's not a problem anymore. That just means that that person is generally abusive in or out the house. You know what I mean?
That's
So
facts.
the problem won't be addressing it because of gender-based violence. That's not the motive. We need to have a more educated approach to it, and a more calculated approach to these things. So
Yeah.
it would be irresponsible to put it on an artist who basically also doesn't know much, about such things. And then when they say ignorant things, then they go, what does the artist even know anyway? You know what I mean?
Mm.
Um, these things are things that the World Health Organization is developing the data as we go. Do you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So I think it's also premature to already play the blame game, you know, and move
Yeah,
it
yeah,
to
for
that
sure.
person and that person. You know what I mean? Because we all in the same boat. We just don't know which boat is gonna crash first, or which boat is gonna get through the storm.
I feel you. I feel you. And you're right. I'm also, just for clarity, I'm pointing no fingers. I'm not stoning from a glass house. Again, we're all responsible for to some degree. So I'm not stealing from position stoning whoever and whoever. That's not my energy. Having said that, I think we agreeing on this gender-based violence thing has been a consistent thing throughout pre and during, and it's probably going to be unfortunately post COVID. So this is why I want to expand this conversation. If I do you think that as I'm gonna I'm gonna just group artists and private civilians. I'm not gonna put a distinction or partition between us. Do you think we've been active enough in dealing with it as a society, even for a second pausing this pandemic, just spanning back to a year, 2 years, whatever the time frame is? Do you feel like as a community, as a race, as a gender of men, even if we want to take it to that space, we've been actively doing sufficient efforts to kind of address this thing? Because we one thing we cannot, there's been a rise, or at least in the reported cases, there's been a rise in those, and one has to question: is it because we've done everything we could and it's just out of our control, or are we simply just, falling short?
I
Not
think
not
that
to
like
spot like that, but just like, since we started running with it. Sorry.
yeah. I think one of the things that they kept saying about this COVID-19 is that it really showed the the division, of the haves and the have-nots in this country.
Mm,
And sometimes, the country, the have and the have-nots are divided by a language. You know, all the
that's facts.
messaging, all the messaging is in one language. Now, if you sitting in a reality where and also then you've got language and then you've got culture, you know. Um, then you got a culture where the culture in KwaZulu Natal, in Polokwane, in Joburg, in one colored community, in another Indian community, the cultures are all different with how they treat women, you know. Um, but the media that literally schools you on how to treat a woman or how to um, how to literally like how to treat a woman literally is all leads to one place. There's one station. It's one type of channel, one type of television. They have the same messages, and those messages don't always apply to certain cultures or to certain rules. So, the problem is that like when we talk about this country, they different people and different people receive messages in a different way. So we consistently find ourselves in that space we where like they're the offenders because they are the offenders because they are deliberate offenders, and then they're
Mm,
offenders because like they like oh, I never knew I was culturally offending you if I talk to you a certain way or if I called you a certain way because I'm from a community where everybody does that. Do you know what I mean?
no.
It's like it's and I'm not saying it's right. You might find a girl like in the hood who literally, when a guy calls her, it's normal, like shy quela, the girl literally goes there, and then you find the girl in the suburbs, completely in the suburbs, and they call it like that, and she's like highly, highly offended. Like, what the
Yeah.
fuck? Like, offended, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for a guy who literally comes from a community where like it's normal, where a girl will also kind of like, ah, what they do. That guy's totally confused, like a culture shock. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
True.
and I mean also as far as things, so the and even flirting, flirting is also like it's also different, what people allow with the level of flirting, whether it's guys or girls, like in the world, you know what I mean?
That's
So
true.
this I'm not talking about the deliberators, the guys who do it on
Yeah,
deliberately
yeah, yeah. I got
and
you.
know
I got
what's
you.
right. I'm just
Yeah.
talking about there's also this layer of
There's
guys
a
and
great.
girls. Yeah, where there's that to do the wrong thing or offend somebody, um, while at the same time, then they are the deliberators. And the deliberators are literally sometimes cushioned by the guys who are in the gray area, because
Mm.
everybody now starts going like, oh, maybe he was in a gray area, but no, he's a fucking deliberator. You know what I
And
mean?
he knew this.
He
Yeah,
knew it.
that's
You know
true.
what I mean?
That's true.
So it's crazy. You can't even. That's why I'm going. It's crazy to even think that you could consider artists in the conversations, because rap
Yeah,
music is not like the most woman-friendly kind of music out there. You know what I mean?
that's
A
true.
dude will be rapping one thing, but he's doing something else too. They partner behind closed doors, like they're respectable. They're not what they're rapping.
I
So
got you. Got you.
so I don't know. We're not all reading from the same book as a society, and I think that really, for me, comes back to knowing where you come from, and knowing how you've been taught. And I think the best people who've been able to manage these things, to be quite honest, sometimes, and whether you agree with it or not, with how they treat their women. That's why when you're Jewish, they say, don't stay in your Jewish people, don't mess with people outside your space.
Mm.
Is Indians, stay with your Indian people. If it's a religious thing, Muslim people don't get that, because they know what is right and what is wrong. They literally create the nuances for themselves, which literally cut across race, country, religion, and then the rest of us literally are just going in there, figuring it out as we go,
It, it's the jungle.
Yeah.
I hear
So
you, and yeah, I feel that, and for me, I just it gets a tricky thing because I'm a firm believer in music succeeds where race and where politics and religion fail. So I love it for that reason, that it has this ability to it goes to the core of just anyone, regardless of your ethnicity and your race and da 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 da. It just, the feeling is the feeling. Music is that thing, and so for me that's a testament about the influence and the power that it has. But at the same time, like you're saying, rap is not traditionally known for being politically correct, even in its history. That it's just not that. However, I think one, yes, it is a young genre, but at the same time, one cannot ignore the evolution that it's making and the steps, like the stride and the pace at which it is evolving and growing. And I think even for one, yes, the music is, I don't like to speak much on the content because that's an artist's sacred space. I'm not the kind of, oh, rap about this, sing about that. But, again, because of what this position of influence, whatever, affords you, I think I almost feel nudged strongly to kind of look at that, and even if it goes beyond just financials, because we had a conversation with a friend some time ago, like if we being frank, the entertainment industry in South Africa is not necessarily the most paying. So for me, I seldom even like to go to the how much money artists giving and donating, da 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 da, because essentially, we're not getting that much money. So it's not a conversation where you can donate 2 million, like whatever, whatever. So, which is fine, because again, I also believe an artist's most valued commodity isn't money, it's influence and impact, your ability to reach a certain number of people that a certain corporation can't, a certain political party can't, right? You can connect with a large number of people and influence a larger number of people without money. And I think that for me is one of easily, arguably, more important, more powerful than money. So, which is why I constantly then go back to, are we maximizing what we can do with this thing, and not even coming from a position of, I'm an artist, I'm telling you this is what we're going to do, but rather aligning with the community on the ground, and just you being even the front man or the one that breaks down these doors, because you have more access than the general public. And again, you're easily a legend in the industry, in the music, and what you've done is admirable, and what you're doing now for the culture and beyond is admirable. I don't feel though, again, personally, there are too many that do that. And if you don't, and if an individual doesn't feel like they want to do that, that's cool. That's not for me to say how you should live and spend yours. Do it how you wish. I just see it in the grand scheme of things though, because again, what this thing's showing us is a certain population that's suffering affects the rest of the people. You know, we're not disconnected. So that's my reason for kind of looking at the culture of music and rap, because one of the influence it has, and two, the opportunities it's afforded and its ability to kind of speak to the core of an individual, not even just, you know, generally speaking.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you what rap music is like. It's like a motivational speaker, you know. Well, some of
Mm.
it. Well, the stuff that motivates you. It's like a motivational speaker. And that
Yeah.
person puts that mics down and they done speaking, then you're on your own. Next day you wake up, you're on your own. All
Mm.
motivational speakers do is just give you this energy for that moment. All that music does is like just gives you the energy. But after that, you know, you're on your own. You literally now are responsible and are accountable and liable for you to push yourself forward without the music. It's almost like this pill, like this Red Bull that literally just gets you going for that moment. But when the song is off, you've only got yourself, you know. So I think even if people can listen to music and music could, in the moment can take them through everything, but when that song is out, they need to get into their reality. If you're in an abusive relationship and you listen to a song about a guy or a girl, then the song makes you feel like you're a survivor, you know, and you feel that. And when that song gets off, then you get into a reality. If you cannot get yourself out that situation, all the song is going to do is comfort you. You know, all the song's going to do is make you feel like you can get away. But other than that, music is like a motivational speaker. It's definitely like just it just builds you up for that moment. But when it's off, reality hits. So
Gotcha.
most of the artists that you even talk about is that you must remember, as much as powerful as we say the artists are, how powerful are the artists when the artists are actually on powerful platforms, and the people who build the platforms like this Instagram are the powerful people because they know that they can leverage on something that people are going to want to consume with its culture. So if an artist signs up on an Instagram and creates their Instagram account, and the artist looks at the data from Instagram and the analytics, now the artist is doing well on the analytics on Instagram, amazing. And all of a sudden, that's like a sign of power. But you take the artist to a rural place where there's the rest of the country is not on Instagram Live, is not this. They're now powerless, you know. Now the artist literally bases their power on just one platform, and they don't work on literally like building their power in a place where an Instagram doesn't live. So they love to consistently be powerful in a place that's already built for them, in a place
Mm.
that they were already a powerful person who literally said, or with a powerful pocket, who literally built a platform that could actually make them believe that's power. So I think we mustn't be eluded by the power of artists and think that artists are actually powerful. That's an illusion. What's powerful are the platforms that are able to actually um, consistently exist even when an artist literally is not popular anymore. The platforms that are able to say, we see that person is going to be something important, let's make sure that they get an account. You know, there's a social media platform who I want name by name, who already they've launched, they're doing well in the world, and they're already calling people in this country to go, yo, we see you, we see you. That's where the power is. The power of the people that are bringing the people who build audiences, and artists literally. And then you jump on Instagram and someone's got 2 million followers, or you go to their live, they got 340,000 followers. I mean, yes,
Gotcha.
you know, they've got that momentum, but But the truth of the matter is that it's the people who are behind the platforms that are the most powerful. It's those people that have the power that can sit with the brands and move things and change things by collaborating with the brands or doing whatever. The artist is literally just like is just exactly that, an amplifier for the brand itself, an amplifier for the platform itself, until they don't need to, until they don't have the power to be that amplification tool anymore. So so for me, it's really based on what your understanding is of power with artists. And once you start understanding that, whether the artists are signed to major recording companies, all that is artists consistently giving their powers to bigger platforms, which literally have the power to walk inside a brand and say that I'm the one that has this whole catalog. I'm the
Yeah,
one that has these millions of people signed onto my social media platform. So there's this misconception, especially in South Africa and even Africa, of what power is, because we literally think fame is power. We literally think that like
true.
your the number of your followers is power, the number of how many people bought tickets to you during your reign for 3 years is power. But that's not the power. The power, the people that are building behind the people who literally like walk around and think that they have that power. And and that's why and I'm using you as an example because you mentioned artists, but as smart as you could be, like a lot of intelligent people then start going, hmm. And I want to use actually the example of power. I go, I've said this before. I go daily. I could at least get like 18,000 people that come on Slick on Live. Now that's my platform, right?
Yeah,
But on Slick on Live, and which monthly we could at least get like say close to 340,000 people that come to the site a month, right? That's power on a niche owned platform, a platform I own myself.
got you.
I might not get that on. I might not have those numbers on Instagram. I might not have those numbers on um, on Twitter or whatever. But and even if I do, I don't. I share those numbers with other people on the same platform. You know.
Yeah, that's
But
not
now
you.
here's me. This is my audience. You know. All of a sudden, the whole concept of but you see, I will not be viewed as the powerful person. The person that's got 2 million followers will be viewed more powerful than I am.
That's
You
true.
understand? So
That's
the
true.
concept of power is also um, fleeting in my view, because like as long as you've got a huge following in a platform that's owned by powerful people, you also powerful. But if
Yeah,
you, and then when something like this, a pandemic like this happens, and now we call for you to come help us with your power as a creative, you can't do anything because Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram ain't going. You can't doesn't give you any real power per se. But the guy who owns Facebook, Twitter, who's been speaking, Mark Zuckerberg, all the people behind that platform that you think gives you power are the only ones that have access to the brands, like you were saying earlier on. They have
yeah,
probably access to to the data and the stats of what's going to happen in COVID-19 in the next 2 3 weeks in different places in the world. They've got the money to do that because they literally have all these things. You know what I mean?
for
So
sure.
so I think, there's a misconception of what power is, and 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 I think the artist's voice is only going to be powerful if it comes together. If we come together and whether we own platforms or whether we become we have one we have one mandate on how we work together, even if we're going to give Facebook power or television power or Metro FM power, we do it with
Yeah,
our terms. As artists, in the creative world, we don't even
yeah.
have like that. We don't even have terms on as a collective on how we engage radio, how we
That's the
engage television, how we engage social media. And when you don't have terms, they give you the terms.
and you
You
take
know, and
whatever
the
they
term,
tell you to do.
you know what I mean. So
That's that
so
shit.
I think we must literally be careful of we must literally be careful. Someone said something today. He said that they don't want to look up to the artists that look up to other artists. Some artists said that today. We must also be careful of thinking that like of thinking of giving too much power on people that don't even know that they actually like under someone else's power. It's the devil that they don't see. You know what I mean?
I
So
got you. I got you.
which is the most powerful devil in the world that's out there. So yeah, so going back to your conversation, going, how do these people with such huge voices go back to their communities? What do they go back to their communities with? Their followers.
Yeah, yeah.
What do they go back to their communities with? Look, the money they got from the shows that they're not getting anymore. What do they go back to the communities with the uncertainty that they're getting also from the government and from the where the world is going.
Yeah.
They don't have data. They don't. I mean, the data is in like insights. They don't have they don't own most of the things that literally carry the data, and
Mm,
everywhere that they make money is probably a thing that collaborates with them and pays them for the equity, and that thing even ends up having the data. That thing comes back to those artists and goes, "Oh, we did so well. Look at the numbers. Look at how you did." And then the guy goes, "Okay, I'm a businessman. I did so much. Let me charge you X amount more this time because I did so much." And they just give them a check and they charge more, but they don't own the system. You know what I
that's
mean?
true.
So,
Yeah.
so,
Okay. Let me
so
let
the
me
long,
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Do you think then if let's say I'm around with you as an example. Let's say Slikour has 500,000, maybe 700,000 followers, right? Fan base on whichever platform. Even if we take it off social media, you just have a solid number of people that follow you. Then would it be a fail, or would it not work, or would it not be effective if you come with that number, and should a brand want to partner with you, whether they want you to be an ambassador or whether head up a campaign or do whatever sort of work, because you have such an imprint seemingly on this group or this portion of the population, would you be in a solid and practical position for you to leverage that influence to kind of negotiate terms of said deal or said contract that takes into account more than just the check that you get cut, but rather of the people that you're representing? So in the question, your fan base, predominantly you might be aware that, a lot of people don't have jobs, whatever. Okay. So brand X comes to you and says, yo, we want you to be the ambassador of so and so and so. Because essentially they're saying we want you to sell this product to these people. So then in that conversation, would it be a thing of effectiveness if we kind of shifted and adopted a mindset and a practice of, well, the people you want me to push your brand to don't have jobs. So what can we do for them to kind of, ease on that burden? Because unemployed people don't purchase anything because they don't have funds, or whatever the social issue may be in that specific case. But essentially, I'm saying just leveraging that reach that you have on people, that influence, to kind of negotiate terms for whatever deal may be, on your table, whether an endorsement, or an ambassador, a gig, a concert, whatever instance may be. But just it leveraging what we do have, the connection with the people, in order to determine favorable terms in all the business movings. Do you think that would be viable? Do you think that works? Are we doing that? Nah.
I mean, look, I mean, I can't also go out there and and when someone is doing an endorsement deal, they already know what they want from the market. You know, it's up
Mm,
to you you cannot change the strategy to a certain extent. You can help them with how their strategy can work, but like if they have a global strategy that's signed off, it's difficult to change things in that instance. I mean, if you understand how that
Gotcha.
branding and marketing world works. But like
Mm,
what you can do is I mean, currently I'm not, my stand right now with a lot of the people I work with is if they're willing to listen, right now we're not trying to sell, but right now we're trying to understand what's happening.
mm,
Your analysis of people being employed or whatever is really your view. You're not living there. You know what I mean? It's your
mm.
view, and it's sometimes I say you must be careful of being that person who passes like what you would say these are poor people, and you feel sorry for them, but they don't feel sorry for
Bit of this.
themselves because
Yeah, yeah.
they know better because they know how to get through this. You must just feel sorry for yourself if you ever got there, because clearly you wouldn't know how to survive. You know what I mean? So don't make the mistake of feeling sorry for people who know how to survive. You should rather like feel sorry for yourself if you had ever had to be in that position. But rather,
Right.
if that was the case, then our job then is to go understand what these people are going through. You know, our
Mm,
job is to go build insights where they hit spaces. What are they seeing that we're not seeing? And as a platform, this is something I've been developing, and obviously, speaking to whoever wants to listen, saying that, listen, we're not gonna go sell right now. Right now, we wanna go understand what the people are going through, and
mm.
and make people and go understand what they feel could be solutions in their community, and if they have those solutions, how do we, if we were a brand, how do we facilitate anything in those ways, you know?
Yeah,
So yes, I'm able to do that as an online platform, which I wouldn't be able to do it with Instagram or Facebook or whatever without me waiting for a global person to kind of go, this can't be done. We haven't rolled this out in Africa yet. You know what I mean? So
gotcha.
so it's beyond the freedom of monetary. It's the freedom of how could you make a difference with your tools, and make the decisions that are agile. Now, the difference with us is that obviously we don't we don't have Silicon Valley budgets. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
true.
that's another hindrance on our side, is that we can think of it and action it, but then sometimes if we don't have the development funds, we gotta wait it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's funky. Our situation is real in that, but I suppose again the age-old argument of us building for our own is seemingly now more important than ever, which is easily another reason why we need or platforms like Slick on Life are important, spaces that are created by us and managed by us because they kind of understand the what culture is. They understand who we are and what we need. And as a result, they can respond and react quickly and more efficiently in times of need. And they know just where to go and how to do it, as opposed to a corporation that just sees, oh, hip hop is blowing up in South Africa. Okay, based on the numbers, we're gonna sign that person because they can, bring in a bigger return on the investment, but simply don't understand the culture or what the culture needs. So the sustainability and the health and progression of the culture is not so much a priority to them, rather what they want back, whether it's money, whether it's influence, or whatever the case may be. So these brands, they come in, they kind of signal out who the right person to align with. They align with them, they get what they want, and they leave. But then, excuse me, we on the other hand, we really don't leave the table with anything other than trinkets that they decided that they're going to leave on the table for us. And I think that's one of the sad and most unfortunate parts of this whole game is, I suppose it lends itself to what you were saying about overestimating the power that artists have because I may see artist XY and really, really love them and really, really look up to them and really think this person or this act is like an influential force, like they can do anything. But, the reality in that artist space is similar to what you were saying. They don't have as much freedom as maybe they may want to because the direction of the global or the overall brand and the corporation is not in line with them, or they aren't afforded much freedom for them to do shit that they kind of want to do, or maybe they might believe in doing. But we just signed you over here to sign hits and make hits, so do that and you get your check. So I think it's an unfortunate situation, but I think again it stresses the importance of us collectively as a culture building our own shit ourselves, because clearly we're seeing little to no external help is going to come, especially to the spaces that we find ourselves occupying.
Well, I mean, black people have been talking about building things for themselves for so long. I don't even care anymore, to be honest. Um, to be
It's
honest with
exha
you,
it's
it's
exhausting.
I don't even care anymore. And
Yeah,
I do like business is business. If white people
mm.
see that we're sleeping and they do a good deal for themselves, why are you gonna be mad at them?
You
Why
can't
you
be
gonna
though.
be why you
That's
gonna be mad
that's
at
the thing.
people if
That's true.
if you guys are gonna sell yourselves off because you guys can't just sit together and make yourself a unit and
They're gonna
create
buy.
and create benchmarks and create rates and criteria for yourselves. If you guys cannot do that, come on, bruh. Like, you know, wait, what are you guys talking about? The best thing that we found is social media. We just talk shit on social media. They even
That's
have a
value
name.
to us though.
They even have a name and they call us like Black Twitter. So you could already see that, like it's like you are forcing the most unimportant thing, like you don't have any equity in it, you don't have any say in it, you're forcing some
Mm.
bullshit, you know. So, and I'm not um taking shots at the social media platforms.
Oh yeah, no,
I'm
for sure.
taking shots at us, I mean, I'm tired. I'm tired of us. We just full of shit. We talk a lot of shit, and I've been in all these groups with famous artists, famous rappers, everybody talking some shit, but like no one takes it to the next one. It's easy to join a WhatsApp group. It's easy
But it,
to,
it ends there though. That's the thing, right?
yeah. So I'm here to see a collaboration of of um of black folk where there's some type of where we work together as businesses, not as oh, we're on the same stage together, but as businesses, and we collectively go fight a fight in the corporate South Africa where we get some type of respect as a team. I'm here to see
Yeah.
that because we can, if we can get that for our bread, we'll be able to get that for our people also in times like these also. But people want to come together when the world is falling apart, but they can't get together when the world is not falling apart, where they can actually grow themselves. So if you haven't practiced how to get together when you are not in a predicament, how are you going to try practice when the world is falling apart?
When
It's
you're
going
in,
to fuck,
yeah,
you know.
yes, that's
And
true. That's true.
that's my view.
I got you. So we basically just don't have an agenda as a people. We just fucking each one his own, to each his own. Handle your shit, get yours, and then
Yeah, we don't have
move.
we have a misconception. There's no agenda with black people. We
That's an unfortunate truth, man. But I do get you. That is true, and I don't think it's easy. It's even hard to ignore that. You see it in all spaces, whether the lowest of the lowest in the township to, the creme de la creme. Just the mindset. It's kind of like you can take them out the hood, but you can't take the hood out of them. You can see the way people move, that this idea of like solidly building some impressionable shit is not a top priority. So I get what you say. I do agree. It does get exhausting. It goes into that funky space of, okay, then kind of hard to give up on us though. Although that kind of is what you pretty much feel like doing a lot of the time. Like, man, fuck these guys. I'm just gonna get my own. And
I don't think it's even about giving up on us. I just can't give up on myself, and because
mm,
giving up on myself is just saying that like I'm making myself available for another person who's just like me, who wants to move forward.
oh, got
You
you.
know,
I feel that.
because
I feel that.
if I give up on myself, I close myself from the opportunities of meeting another person like myself who who's willing to collaborate, willing to fight, willing to get down to the nitty gritty and not keep on always talking shit and complaining about all the time. There's a speech, you go, the president, no. And fuck that shit. Just do the thing. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Um, so, and I'm not saying that I'm perfect, but like it's just we just we complain a lot, and complaining just means that it's like a baby that feels that they deserve shit. No one owes you nothing. No one owes you
Yeah,
nothing. You know,
that's what
I
it
mean, no
it
one, no one
it
is,
is.
no one. Like,
Yeah, it is a loser's mentality, though. To point fingers, it's kind of, and it's what we do on the reg, like, oh, da 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 da. But the same thing as pointing out issues. It's good that we know what the issues are, but at some point, you kind of have to do something about the shit. Like, okay, we get it. We know what the problem is. So it's similar to what we're saying now. We know that we don't have a unanimous agenda. So instead of actually actively forming one, we'll more frequently just complain and point these kinks out. And so I get it. This shit can be exhausting. It's a lot, but in a nutshell, that's basically what I just wanted to touch ground on. Just get that perspective and that different lens and vantage point in terms of representation and what space we're moving in and how we're kind of interpreting or seeing and maneuvering through this whole thing. But I feel you, and I appreciate your time, King. Thanks for coming through. This was dope, and yeah, that was basically that. Just trying to get that lens, trying to get that insight.
thank you, man, and I apologize for last week again.
Nah, it's all good. We straight, fam.
Thanks,
Good health
brother.
to
You
you
too.
and the family, though. Appreciate you,
Thank you, man. Take care.
my man.